Well, it's great to have Yankees GM Brian Cashman in town today. We're out here at the Wildcat, and heck of a start here so far this season. How you guys feeling in the Yankees organization? You've been crushing it here for the first few weeks.
Well, I've had some better night's sleeps the first few weeks of the season. It's been a tough schedule. We got out of the gate looking at that schedule early. It was like, wow, this is going to be a tough stretch. So I'm real proud of our team and how they've gone about it, notwithstanding yesterday's tough loss in Cleveland. But on to Toronto.
Yeah, on to Toronto tonight for the next of three. And, you look at this AL East, and it feels like every year, right? How do you handle being in this division on a year-in, year-out basis?
Yeah, the American League East is just filled with beasts, and the team's power might change from time to time, from top to bottom, but they're all really difficult to navigate. So, that's why we're lucky we have an ownership like the Steinbrenners that really, support this franchise in a way second to none. So every year we have a chance to obviously take a shot at a championship caliber effort. And this year, notwithstanding, I think we have a great team. And as long as we can stay healthy, I think we're going to make a lot of noise.
Obviously, the biggest move you made in the offseason was Juan Soto, and it appears to be paying a huge dividends early. What was that like for you putting that together, and how pleased are you with Juan early?
Certainly really pleased. Not surprising. He's one of the game's great young players that's currently on a Hall of Fame trajectory type career. We've tried to get him, when he was back with Washington. Washington was putting him on the auction block, and ultimately San Diego was able to secure him at that time. So we failed in our attempt then. Then last summer with San Diego, they were dabbling, maybe moving him. So we did a lot of groundwork that set us up when they chose not to move him last summer, but they made the decision to move him this winter. We were ready to hit the ground running because we had so many conversations in July about it with each team. We knew who they liked. We knew they liked our system, the names in our system they liked on the major league down to the minor league side. And so I think the atmosphere was good for us to get something done. And it hurt, but to get a great player, you got to give up some good young players too.
You know this, Brian. Not everyone works in the Bronx, right? Some people get there, and the pressure and everything is too high. I watched this guy a month in. Big smile every day. He's out there with the fans. Why is this, matchup with him in the city working so well early?
I wish I could say. There's no doubt that, and this is a credit to the player, Juan Soto. I know he's openly talked about the difficulty of transitioning, getting traded for the first time from Washington to San Diego, and that was an adjustment for him. So maybe, getting those type of adjustments out of the way and more used to it. So when he goes to San Diego to New York, it just feels like he's been here for a long time. It feels like he grew up in our franchise because, I know these guys all know each other from various, all-star games and stuff like that, but it feels like he's had long-term relationships already in place. He's already bonded with our fans. That's not a surprise. Our fans are going to bond with somebody who's doing what he's doing anyway. But he's made such an easy transition. It reminded me when Matsui came over from Japan, which is on the other side of the planet. And just the way he went about his business, Hideki Matsui, he made it easy for everybody else around him, made it felt like he'd been here a long time, and Juan Soto's doing the same thing.
Yankees GM Brian Cashman is our guest. And, one more thing here on Soto. Obviously, it's a short-term deal, and then the thought of long-term. How do you handle those two things when it comes to making a trade, and then how you have to deal with that now and into the offseason?
Yeah, there's no doubt, we had to make a decision. Do we want to play on this? Because it could be only a one-year situation. Our certainly hope is going to be that it'll be a long-term, but there's no guarantee. And I know talking to some other counterpart GMs, they chose not to make a trade for him because, they anticipated he'd be a free agent, and they didn't want to give up much for a 6-month rental. But we're in a win-now mode every year, and so we couldn't pass on the opportunity to put him in the pinstripes, give us the best shot in 2024 to win that we could, and also baptize him into the Yankee universe a little bit to put us in a better position maybe as this entire year of recruiting will take place for us to see if we can convince him to stay. But that'll all be for another day.
Yeah, your win now and your win later guy is Aaron Judge. He's off to a little slow start by his standards. How do you assess his first few weeks?
It's hard to assess anybody's first few weeks, but he hit another home run yesterday. He had a late start coming out of spring training because he pulled a rib cage, so he missed most of the camp. So I think he's just knocking the rust off. But the one thing we all know about Aaron Judge is, he's one of the game's great players, and we're lucky to have him. He's our captain. But it's nice to see him getting hot. That's what's great about our start so far. with the numbers we put up record-wise, we've been doing it without certain cast of characters that you count on. We're missing Garrett Cole, obviously. Aaron Judge hadn't really hit yet. Gleyber Torres hadn't really hit yet. I can bounce around a few different spots, which gives me even higher hope that there's more in the tank with this team. But it's a long year. We'll have to wait and see.
How about Anthony Vulpi? Talk about guys that haven't hit. He is hitting the cover off the ball right now. You know, he got tossed in the deepest end of the pool last year. How do you think that helped develop him, I guess, into year 2?
Yeah, I mean, his development continues. You know, when we called upon him last year and he ultimately won the Gold Glove for his shortstop, you know, in his maiden voyage as a rookie, but he wasn't really a finished product. He barely had any time at AAA.
Yeah.
You know, so in theory, he kind of jumped AA right into the big leagues, even though he had a little bit of a, you know, dipping his toe into the AAA level the prior year. So last year was probably some growing pains. He was really young, but because of his makeup and how he is wired, we had no doubts that ultimately, you know, this sophomore season, you know, you're going to see even a more improved version of him, and I think that'll continue. He's going to be a really good player for quite a long time, and we're really lucky that Damon Oppenheimer chose him with that pick in the draft, and we were able to convince him, don't go to Vanderbilt, come to the Yankee organization, and you know, he grew up a Yankee fan, so. You know, like Derek Jeter, you know, also, both guys grew up playing shortstop, wanting to be a shortstop for the Yankees. You know, those are stories that are great to be told.
You mentioned Garrett Cole, obviously still out working his way back. What's his status right now? Do you have any idea when you might expect to see him on the bump?
Probably sometime in the summer. You know, he just started his throwing program. You know, I think he was shut down for about a month of no throw with just, you know, physical therapy, and so far his flat ground throwing program, you know, which is basically baby steps.
Yep.
It's going fine and good, no problem, as expected. I know he feels good, but the real test is when he starts obviously getting on a mound and starting to put real, you know, velocity into it and stuff like that. But that's down the line. But all systems are go, and we're optimistic that you know, we'll be able to relaunch him sometime in the summer.
And obviously Garrett, unfortunately in baseball right now, like, he's part of an extremely long list of these, you know, big-time pitcher injuries. We saw Strider had a UCL procedure over the weekend for the Braves and is done for the year. How do you view that, I guess, A, from a baseball perspective, all these injuries, and B, from a GM perspective, where you have to put together a team that's you got to fill these innings somehow over the course of a year?
No doubt about it. I mean, ultimately, pitching, you know, I grew up in the horse business. You know, I grew up in Kentucky, and, you know, like great thoroughbreds, they go down, they get hurt all the time. You know, pitchers are the same way, and obviously we're dealing with a rash now again. Not the Yankees per se, but the industry, and you know, the speculation is clearly with the higher the velo, you know, and the spin rates, you know, the more demand you're putting on those muscles and those tendons and those ligaments, and obviously things are eventually going to break. So, you know, as long as we can avoid it as much as we possibly can, but the injuries to the pitchers aren't anything really new. But I do know that the way we're going about training players in the arena of baseball, we have a better idea now with the technology and the analytics about how to maximize performance, and you can do that in real time in practice sessions now, and so I think ultimately that's having a cascade effect, I'm sure. So it's a trade-off essentially. If you want the best version of someone in a pennant race, you know, you got to turn them loose and let them run hard, and ultimately that will lead to them breaking at some point, especially with the higher velo.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I guess it is what it is right now in baseball. All right, Brian, appreciate you coming up to the Q's today, and thanks so much for a few minutes.
Thanks so much for having me.